Tourism is a commercial organization, operation of holidays, and visit to place of interest. According to Google, the USA, Spain, and France are among many countries that make the most revenue from tourism. This means tourism boosts the revenue of an economy, creates thousands of jobs, and develops infrastructure of a country. Since the outbreak of the novel COVID-19 disease, which affects the respiratory organ through the spread of droplets from sneezing, coughing, or coming into contact with an infected surface, has had a major impact on countries, which led to some restrictions across the globe. Due to the fast spread of the virus, the President of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, on 15th March 2020, had no options but to put restrictions on all social gathering and impose a 3-week lockdown in some parts of the country, which has affected tourism.
So, fellow Ghanaians, until further notice, funerals, weddings, concerts, theatrical performances, and parties are banned. Beaches, nightclubs, cinemas, and pubs continue to be shut.
This documentary will take us through some tourist sites to find out the negative impact COVID has had on tourism in Ghana.
So I would like to give you a brief history about the Botanical Garden and what we have in the garden. So, first of all, a brief Botanical Garden was officially opened in 1890. That was by the British. And when these British came, the land was a forest. So they approached the chiefs. And then 160-acre land was offered to them. Out of this 160, they developed just 30 acres. So a brief Botanical Garden is 30 acres. That is the developed side. We have the undeveloped side, which is about 130 acres. And it's a reserve forest. It's a reserve forest because since the 30 acres has been declared, the species that we have here, like in terms of animals, reptiles, most of them have moved down to the reserve. So the reserve is to contain the plant, the animals that were here and can no longer sustain, can no longer survive because of the people, the interference. Yeah. So most of these animals have moved to the reserve. So we are still keeping as a reserve in order to contain the reptiles and the few animals that move there. But within the garden, which is 30 acres, it's been divided into 10 sections. Yes, and all the trees that we will be going around to see are not indigenous. When I say indigenous, it means all the trees that you have in the garden here are not all from Ghana. Okay. So we have trees coming from Europe, trees from Asia, trees from all over the continent. So we will see them as we go along. But before we even start, this tree right on the floor is the oldest tree in the Botanical Garden. Unfortunately died 2019. And that is over 600 years old. It was even older than the garden. And when I say it's older than the garden, it means that it was here before the garden. The garden was a forest and was cleared and designed. So before the garden was designed, this tree was here. So we call it Mother of the Trees. Unfortunately died. And it's a cotton tree. In tree, we say Oina. Yeah, Oina. But the English name or the real name is Cyber pentandra. The botanical name is Cyber pentandra, and we all know it as cotton tree. Yeah, so that is it. And it's the same species that you see standing here. This big tree here is the same species, but it is just quite young. This was planted almost 100 years ago, and I guess you all heard of Sir Gordon Gordgesberg. Yes. The Baden colonial governor. He picked a seed from the oldest tree and planted this tree. That's how come we have this by the tree. Yeah. So, and then right in front of us, the structure, the building you see over there, it's a sanatorium. It was started as a sanatorium by the British colony. The Gold Coast officials, those days when they wanted, after work, when they are stressed out and they want to relax, or when they are not feeling well and want to relax, you can see we are on a hill which is about 450 meters high above sea level. So the climate we have here is quite different from that of the city Accra. Yeah, so the weather here is quite cool. The air you breathe here is clean. So they decided to put up a sanatorium. That means a place when the governor is not feeling well, they bring him up here to come and relax. And that was why this building you see there was built. Yeah. So after which, when they handed it over to us, there was a war in Nigeria, that was called Biafra War. The two leaders there wanted a neutral ground or neutral country where they could go and sign an agreement to see how they can resolve the war. So they decided to choose Ghana. And when they came to Ghana, they were brought here to sign the accord. So most Nigerian students who come here comes here because of this building. It's part of their history and they always want to come and see the structure. So they call it Aburi Accord. Aburi Accord. But we call it sanatorium because it was initially started as a sanatorium before the governor used it, the president used it to solve that problem.
Alright, Mr. Martin, can you share with me some of the challenges Aburi Gardens have faced before and during COVID-19?
Oh, okay, thank you for your question. Prior to 2019, that's the year of return, things were going on here normally. When I say normally, we were receiving visitors as expected. We could receive like between 100 to 300 visitors in a day. And then when the year of the return was launched, that was 2019, that was from November, we had a lot of visitors, especially foreigners. We could receive like 400 to 500 visitors in a day. So actually, in terms of revenue, it was okay. Things were picking up. Things were going on well until the lockdown came, or when the president announced that he has put restriction on the travel bans. So it really affected us, and we really suffered because you could come and then on the whole day you only receive like between 30 to 40 visitors, and it was slow. Things were very slow here, so it's one of the challenges that we had. But after the lockdown, and then we started receiving some visitors, especially indigenous Ghanaians who wanted to come out and then relax because of being indoors for some time. They wanted to come out, so they were coming slowly. So it picked up slowly. So recently, some of the visitors, the foreigners, have started coming. Yeah, but in terms of revenue, now it's okay. But during the COVID, it was we had a challenge.
Right. One would say that the most hardest, the hardest hit sectors of the economy of Ghana as a result of COVID has been the tourism sector, because tourism largely has to do with people traveling from one destination to the other, and so COVID came and all these things were grinded. It had a devastating effect on us. We have the Prempeh II Jubilee Museum here, which is a major tourist attraction site, and I dare say that on the average we receive about close to 30,000 per annum. And you would recall 2 to 3 years ago, of the year of return, after 400 years of the enslaved Africans taken away from their roots, they should come back home. So tourism at that time was at its peak. 2018, 2019, it was at its peak. However, COVID came and it really halted everything, because the disease says one does not have to mingle, get closer. All these protocols must be observed and stuff like that. So indeed, at a point we had to close this place for a couple of months, and as directed by the president, so as to reduce the devastating effects or the spread of the disease. And yes, so now one would say that we are almost at ground zero. However, we are doing what we can to come back, because whatever, now we are made to understand that COVID has come, and who knows, maybe it has come to stay or it will disappear completely, but life still goes on. So we have tried reaching out to some media stations and things like that. So currently we're having more of local or domestic tourism from schools and sometimes religious organizations, but it's unlike before. This one is not encouraging, but we hope that once people begin to patronize, that fear of COVID being, it may go off, and later on people will begin to patronize it as before. But let me say this, that COVID has come to cripple the tourism sector and all these attraction sites, including the Prempeh Second Jubilee Museum.
The G.I.J Paris Museum, let me tell you, it's a private institution. It doesn't have any government funding anything. So when I say this, it tells you how much we have been affected by this COVID. Since last year, March, that the nation was locked down, the G.I.J Paris Museum is still closed. We haven't had visitors to the place since that time. So you could imagine, we have to pay the workers, the staff, the electricity bills, and the rest. So we had to fall on other things before we could operate. So directly, the salaries, the utilities, and the rest, where are you going to get funds to pay? So we have been highly hit by this COVID. And apart from that, the G.I.J Palace Museum also has suppliers that supply the museum with goods that we sell to our customers. So they have also been hit, because right now they don't bring their goods, not forgetting even their families. Most of them depended heavily on the activities that went on here. Now the place is closed, no more goods. It means their family is affected. They are also affected, their dependents are affected. And we had the youth in this locality that bring their goods here, especially for the expats. When they came, this Kente and the rest. So they too have been affected because they don't bring their goods here. So in terms of economic, yes, the museum has been, hit by a tsunami. That no funds anywhere, no support anywhere. So it was because of the way we have been affected, that the World Bank, through the Ministry of Tourism, granted us or gave us some grant to upgrade our site. So since March that last year, the museum was closed. So this year, and I think 31st January this year, we made a public announcement that the museum will be closed starting from February. So it has been closed since February 1st. So as we see what is happening here, so the place has been given to the contractor to renovate the place. So it's due to be completed by the end of August this year. So in a nutshell, what I would say is that it has been, because some we came here, no workers, their families have been hit, and their dependents too. So if you tell me how the COVID has, brought to the world, so that is what is happening here. Normally, the museum within this period That is where we call it our peak season. June, July, August, or late May, June, July, August. And first week in September, that is our peak season. That is where we get our chunk of money from. But today, last year we missed it. This year too, likely we will miss it. So that is it. And we get most of our revenues from the expats because they pay more. And when they come, because they patronize our shop, we get a lot of money. But today, nothing. So that is what is actually happening here. No activity, nothing, because of COVID.
Usher Fort was built by the Dutch in 1649, and it was built on 3 posts. They came here to trade on 3 posts. They brought in gunpowder and gold, and they took away our gold and ivory. And later on, the British took over. And that is where they engaged into slave trade. And so Usher Fort is now 372 years old as I'm talking to you. And also, our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, after the slave trade have been abolished, our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, used Usher Fort as a prison. And when you look at the top of the structure, it's a condemned prison and then a political prison. And so those giant politicians, and I can mention a few of them, our late president Rawlings passed through here, Akufo-Addo passed through here, Kufuor also passed through here as well, and he served here 2 times. He passed through here 2 times. But it's a history through that here become the World Heritage Site, and UNESCO have been taken over. And when you come to Ghana, the whole of Africa, when you talk about a country that have the facts, the truth, is Ghana. We have 28 forts and castles in Ghana across. As I was saying, after Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, took over Usher Fort, he used here as a prison. And so the top structure is a condemned prison, a political prison, and then the down is what? A condemned prison. So we will go down there to have experience about the structure. As you can see, this Arabic written on the wall, it has been done by a Sudanese. In 2005, a Sudanese found himself here as a refugee in Ghana here. Remember, slave can't write, it's only prisoners, but they are not prisoners, okay? They came here as a refugee. Thank you. This is where they do their execution. Everybody come in. Everybody come in. The last person should close the door. 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 With due respect, so many soul lost over here. So when we come here, we salute them a lot by prayer. So can we close our eyes and pray? Father, we thank you for the little opportunity you gave us. We respect those who lost their souls over here. May they rest in peace in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Yes. When you come here from the house of the Lord, there is only 2 questions to ask you for you to take one for them. Okay? 2 questions. 1. Would you like to be electrified? Or to be hung? There is a barrier. So you choose one. Those who will be going through by hanging, there's a water filled in this pit. So after they remove the ladder under you, your spirit will go. So when the spirit is gone, they will remove the dead body and place it in the water for burial. So from here we are going to the burial ground. The whole of this compound This is where they do their burying. Okay, this is where they bury them.
So, before COVID-19, how was the patronage of the site?
It was very, very good. As I'm talking to you now, before COVID, a lot of foreigners came here to tour, and I can estimate a day of 50 to 100 foreigners came to Osherford to hear a lot of history about here. And our side as a Ghanaian, non-foreigners as a Ghanaians also do come, a lot of school come here to come and hear the history about Osherford as well. And so before COVID, here was so busy and a lot of people used to come here as well. But after COVID, things went down slowly. A day, I can estimate sometimes we don't even have any foreigner to come here for tour, and sometimes to one, sometimes to two. It was so very, very bad, and the place is not so busy as how it was first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.